Warm summer greetings to all of you, our friends from around the world. This is Ramon Rocha of MAI. Thank you for joining us for today's MAI webinar, How to Publish for the General Market. We are glad to see almost 40 of you from friends from 18 countries register for this webinar. There is a temptation for some Christian publishers to only be publishing for your comfort zone, which is the Christian market. Would that be the easier or more friendly market to deal with compared to the more challenging, more intimidating secular market? Or you simply don't have the resources to delve into it? The reality is most countries on earth have a much bigger non-Christian population. Therefore, the potential is there, obviously. But yes, it is not easy to target. So how do you publish for the general market? Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to encourage you to please ask your questions by using the Q&A box, and you can also give your comments using the chat. You can type in anytime while the presentation is ongoing, and we will go through your questions after the presentation. We are so blessed to have with us today Reinatto Fleissner of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Reinatto is Director of Operations of Editora Mundo Cristal, one of the largest Christian publishing houses in the country. I asked Reinatto what is the contribution of the general market to their company's total sales over the past few years. He said around 50% over the past few years, and they hit a milestone last month. He said they hit 60% of their total sales contributed by the general market. They must be doing the right things to be able to get that much sales from the general market. So Reinatto, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for making yourself available to be our resource speaker on this topic. Please start your presentation.
Hello, thank you, Ramon. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure having this opportunity to share our experience. And I want to say that this is our experience. Maybe your reality is different, but we had a dream more than 10 years ago to reach the general market. And what I will tell you, it's a little bit of our story, and I wish you can benefit of our experience. Uh, I, I I need to say that I have a lot of content. Uh, Sometimes I try to go faster, but as Ramon said, if you have questions, I can try to answer your questions. I would like to start um, sharing you information about Brazil. Brazil is the largest country in South America. We have around 250 million population. The religion, we have 49% of Roman Catholic and evangelical Christian 32%. This is an important figure to consider our approach to the general market. If you go back 20, 30 years, you'll see that the percentage of the evangelical Christian at that time was really low. So we have a very fast growth of the evangelical Christian church in Brazil in the latest 30 years. When we talk about publishing in Brazil, doing business in Brazil, we have to consider inflation. Inflation is a serious question in Brazil. In the last 12 months, we have almost 9% of inflation. And the devaluation of Brazilian real reached 22% last year. This is a critical factor for publishers in Brazil because the cost of the paper and all the printing factors are dollar-based. And we are living our deepest and longest recession since 2015. Let me give you a few numbers of the Brazilian book industry. I'm talking about the book industry in general, not only the religious sector. Last year, we have a decrease in our sales. The sector lost 6%. But if you go back to 2006, the sales decreased 30% in Brazil. The religious segment lost 50%. So we are a little bit more resilient, but anyway, we have a loss in the spirit. The religious publication represent 15% of the industry. The digital products represent 6% of the overall sales. And we estimate that nowadays, the trade book sales are 60% coming from online sales. Of course, the 60% could change by the end of the year because in Brazil, I would say that 100% of the bookstore are now open. But anyway, online sales became huge in Brazil in the latest years. About Mundo Cristão, Mundo Cristão was founded by American missionary Peter Calef, 1965. Typically, we publish 36 books and Bibles. 2016, we launched a new Bible translation we call Nova Versão Transformadora. It was translated from the original languages, but we used the translation guidelines from Tyndale House, the same guidelines they use it in the New Living Translation. We started developing ebooks 2011, and 2018 we started audiobooks. We have around 41 employees, and as Ramon mentioned, the general market is extremely important to us. We're trying to be very active on social media, and we also take advantage of the Bible apps like YouVersion, JFA from Brazil, and Mundo Cristão also has its own Bible apps. So in the total, we have about 1 million readers on our Bible apps. So the question we talk now is, why can't the Christian publisher ignore the general market? This picture was taken last month. This is Ivanette. Ivanette is a sales rep, and she was at the general bookstore in Campinas. Campinas is about 1 hour from São Paulo downtown. And I think this is a good example what we are going to talk. This is a table with just Mundo Cristão products. So we have a very fancy Bible cover and other Bible covers here. We have a lot of books. For example, we have the 5 Love Language. Many of you should recognize. We always also publish in Brazil the 1 Year Bible. And so we have a table with all Mundo Cristão titles. This is a very important bookstore. And the table itself, has a very good location at the bookstore. So when a typical buyer go to the bookstore, Mundo Cristão appear very quickly, and this is also a kind of dream that came true because was, I mean, 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago was something impossible. So why we haven't ignored the general market? The first reason it's also simple. I mean, the Christian readers use general retail channels for their consumer needs. So we go to supermarket, we visit Amazon website, we go to general bookstore. So there's no reason for a Christian publishers to ignore the general market because our reader used to go to the general for a general bookstore, for example. This is a very, I mean, simple reason because we can't ignore. And our founder, Peter Canliffe, used to say that every book is a missionary. And we like to add that our missionaries must go beyond our own walls. So this is another very simple reason because we can't ignore. So the first reason would be we can't ignore the general market because the general market is a sales channel. So, and as a sales channel, our readers used to visit, used to go there. But there's a second reason. You can also understand the general market as a target audience. So our experience in Brazil is that there are some categories that the non-Christian readers or the non-evangelical Christian reader will like to read from us, like family books, books on relationships, like the Five Love Language. In Brazil, we have sold more than 1.2 million Five Love Language from Gary Chapman. This is a huge success, not only in Brazil, I know, but this is a good example. So you can reach the non-evangelical Christian reader with your publication. We also have good examples on public domain titles and also business titles. So the general channels are a real opportunity to diversify and increase our sales. But if you have this dream, if you are trying to reach the secular channel, you should be able to answer some questions. And on our experience, what do the general channels buyer expect from us? Because one thing is the dream, and the next step is trying to make this dream something real. So in our experience, going back to the first attempts to sell on the general channels, the first question they ask is about our sales potential. And we should be able to answer that question, because if we think in terms of a typical bookstore, the bookstore have a short limit of space. So we really have to fight for a share in their shelves. So the first question is about our sales potential. And the second, when you are visiting a buyer and we show your books to him or to her, they usually react to the covers. So how would the reader react? How would the buyer react to our cover at the point of sale? The question would we feel embarrassed if we saw our covers along with other publishers' covers? So in this scenario, we have to think our book together with other publishers' books. And so the attraction that the cover raise is really important. And besides that, the printing quality is quite important. The fourth question, it's extremely important. So how well organized your metadata is. And the metadata is all the data that describe and give information about your title. When you used to sell to local churches or to Christian bookstores, usually the metadata doesn't seem so essential. But when you sell to a bookseller chain, a professional bookstore, the metadata is quite important. Besides that, another issue quite important is, are your titles classified according to international standards? So the categories you choose for your title is correct according to the international standard. So you should pay attention to that also. Thinking about Brazil, typically general bookstore get the books under consignment, or if it's not under consignment, as a publisher, you need to guarantee full return. Are you able to work on that way? We know that this demands a good cash flow, so you should be ready to answer this question. And besides the discount, usually you have to be able to pay the cost of promotion. So sometimes you give, for example, 45, 50%, but you should add 2-3% on promotion. So you should think about it when you intend to sell through the general market. Another question, you should have a very good back office structure to support the service to the general market. Typically, the general market demands a very good back office on logistic, on administrative issues, financial, etc. The last point that we try a lot when we start dealing with the general market, we used to help them to communicate to our audience that the book start to be available at a general point of sales. So you should be part of the solution in terms of guarantee to the buyer that you will help him to tell your readers that the book is now available at their or his or her bookstore. Well, I don't know your publishing house, but probably thinking about our experience, we had to raise our standard to face the new competition, and probably you will also need to raise our standard to face the new competition, because if you think about this new market, you are facing new competitors. So sometimes the publisher you need to face is not, the Christian books publisher, but now you are competing with all kind of publishers. So you need to think about your standards, and so you have to find new benchmarks. So if you intend to sell to the general market, what publishers inspire you to face this new competition? What kind of publishers you can get inspiration? I mean, to improve yourself to face this new market. So we have to find new benchmarks. I would like to suggest, I really think that the typical bookstore, the brick and mortar bookstore, it's a very, very important way to distribute our books and Bibles. But I would like to share with you a kind of new roadmap. I would like to suggest you to have a broader vision of the opportunities. Because our understanding here is the old way of doing business is increasingly risky for publishers. From our point of view, we have four big issues. The first is the concentration in the sales channel. This is a reality here in Brazil. Just to give you an example, few years ago, 4 years ago, the two big general bookstore chains went to Chapter 11, and that represents a big loss for publishers in Brazil, also for Mundo Cristão. And at that point, the concentration was huge. And of course, the concentration remains. For example, in Brazil, Amazon is becoming more and more important to the publishers. So the concentration itself is a big issue. Another issue is that it's very easy to start a new publishing house. It doesn't mean that it's easy to remain as a publishing house, but it's very easy. So every year you have more, I would say, competitors fighting for the same share of shelf. Other issue here in Brazil is higher discounts. So every year the buyer demands for more and more discounts. And finally, the printing cost. So the printing cost, the paper cost, for example, is becoming a huge issue. They are not paper for everybody. For example, papers for Bibles. Yesterday, we asked for Bible printing for a new Bible, and the paper will arrive here in Brazil just in December. So we will only be able to launch the Bible in January. And we talked with printing companies in other countries like China, and the problem was the same. They are not paper for everyone. So the cost of the paper and the printing costs in general have become a big issue for everybody. So what I suggest is to think about the digital environment. There is a kind of ecosystem available for us that we have to think about it. As not exactly an alternative for the old way of doing business, but something that can add value to add value to our existing business. So the first point is the book business has dramatically changed in recent years. I think it's a problem to do business as we did in the past. I will tell you why. We have this reality. There are new tools available for publishers today. And the interesting thing, I know that the pandemic is a global tragedy, but we have a few lessons from the spirit also. And I would say that as the Christian publishers, we must take advantage of this revolution to approach the general market. And these are some topics that we have to think about. I will go very fast, but I will try to show you all of these factors. First, digital products as an alternative to the hard copies. I'm not telling you that the digital products will replace, the printing book or printing Bible, but they are becoming more and more important. The print on demand, I would say 2-3 years ago, until 2-3 years ago, we had problems to find a partner in Brazil for the print on demand. But now in Brazil, for example, we have a good alternative. And we also have an excellent alternative internationally on Ingram. I will try to talk a little bit later about that. The third factor is the social network. And then online bookstores like Amazon and others, online sales, project management software, online meetings. I will try to go a little bit faster about that. We typically talk about ebooks and audiobooks. You know about that, but I will also intend to talk to you about the online content. Sorry, your website, Bible apps, and free reading plans have becoming more and more important to Mundo Cristão. In the beginning, I told you that we have about 1 million users on our Bible. But besides that, we also develop what we call reading plans. It's part of our Bible engagement project, and we have around 800,000 subscribers on our reading plans. These are free content, but they are helping us to spread our new Bible translation through Bible readers in Brazil. So even though I will monetize this online content, we know that they are helping us to make our Bible translation known among the readers. For Mundo Cristão, just to give an example, ebooks and audiobooks are around 60% of the overall sales. It's the average of the Brazil in general, and has becoming more and more important to us. We also have the POD, the printing on demand, as an important tool and part of this digital environment. And what in the past, when we had no alternative for print on demand in Brazil, we had an issue when the license expired, and the publishers in US, for example, asked for a renewal because at that time, for example, the title was not selling well, and to reprint like 1,000 copies will be, I mean, unprofitable. Now, with the printing on demand, we can print the book. We know that the cost is higher, but now we have our own channels to distribute the long tail titles. So the printing on demand has been very good for us because we have all the books, all the titles now are available to the reader. Sometimes it's not good to sell this print-on-demand title through a typical bookstore, but we can also we can sell through our own channel. So you should consider, if you are not considering now, you should consider the print-on-demand solution. And since June, we start working with Ingram's POD structure. This was a very, very good surprise because with Ingram, we now can offer our titles worldwide. So we have our paperback titles now being sold in US, in Australia, in UK, in Europe, printing locally. So we don't export the title to US. The book are printing in US, very fast, very easy, and helping us to reach the Portuguese speaking audience, not only in the United States, but worldwide. So it was, and it has been a very good surprise. So I should say that you must consider the printing on demand as part of the solution. Going fast, social networks are extremely important to Mundo Cristão. We have a lot of experience. We have not only the Facebook and Instagram, Twitter messages. We also work with YouTube. We produce podcasts, and the return is extremely interesting. We are because of the pandemic, we start to do online book launches with local and international authors, and has been a very, very good surprise. So I really suggest that if you are not investing on social media, you should consider all the possibilities of the social medias. We also have you know, online bookstores. We are working with these options. And I would like to show you something that is possible in Brazil. I think it's also possible in different parts of the world. And I also know in some countries you have more possibilities than you have in Brazil. This is an example of a book page at Amazon. This is the 5 love language that you may know. So Amazon allow us to produce those squares to communicate the book content. They are also starting advertising here in Brazil, and Amazon has a lot of tools to help you to be more productive on your sales. So I think it's very hard to ignore the Amazon potential as a bookseller. I may say about can say about Brazil. In Brazil, has probably 1/3 to 40% of the overall market. So it's very hard to ignore Amazon as a sales channel. Online sales is also important. Mundo Cristão started his online sales 2 years ago, and it's an interesting experience. I'm telling you some good reasons to start working with the online sales. And one of the reasons I took a separate note on our online, because of our online sales, we know that our buyer is 62% of our buyer are women, and 38 are men. We know that 26% are between 18 to 24 years, 34% between 25 to 34 years. So 60% of our buyers are from 18 to 34 years. So we are developing strategies based on this profile. So many tools you use to sell online can give you a lot of details which are really important to maximize your efficiency on online sales. Has become easier. I mean, you now have very good softwares that can manage your online sales. So you should consider, if you have no alternative now for online sales, you should consider starting or thinking about that. You may ask what the project management software are or is related to selling through the general market. Part of this digital environment is related to management. And what I can say, we use Asana at Mundo Cristão. In our area, we prefer Asana. The project management software became our project development faster than before. So what we did here, and we also do now in Brazil, sometimes, for example, we are producing a special cover for Amazon, for a Bible cover, sorry, for Amazon in Brazil. Sometimes we have a special project to a secular bookstore. So the way you manage your project can help you to serve your general sector faster than before. So you should also consider project management software. And I would say they are not that expensive. So it's a good solution on management. Also, the online meetings. Brazil is a very, very big country. And online meeting software could help you on serving or teaching, training the local bookstore very far from your office. So I also ask you to think about that. So I will try to end now, but why is this digital revolution so important? Think that if you are going to the secular market, you are competing with new competitors. So productivity is really important. the digital age, the pandemic are developing new consumers habits. It's another reason. It's quite important to create communities. I don't have much time to tell you about that, but the digital revolution can help you as never before to create communities. So it's something really important. Another issue is to reduce distance between authors and readers. And this revolution can help you about that. And finally, you can discover your reader's profile. So this is something quite important on your acquisition process, for example. So these are some reasons why the digital revolution is so important. And I would like to be very clear. I'm not advocating that we need to leave the physical book behind. It's not the question here. On the contrary, the digital environment can help us to add new values, new opportunities, new approaches in order to fulfill our mission to let people have their life transformation about Jesus Christ. So, in fact, what I'm talking about is about our mission. So, my suggestion is that this digital revolution can help us to do our mission in a different and very interesting way. Okay, so this is what I would like to tell you. So, Ramon, and I would like to thank you for this amazing opportunity.